Hello, I'm Buttons Padin, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Lessons Learned, UK Sailmakers podcast series, where you get to listen in on sailing conversations that'll help you sail with confidence. Today, I'm speaking with Jack Fenwick, Sailing Development Manager for the Royal Thames Yacht Club in London. Welcome to Lessons Learned, Jack.
Thanks, Buttons. Good to have this opportunity to chat.
Great. Today, Jack and I are going to be discussing a new topic for Lessons Learned, something we haven't gotten into before, team racing. We're not going to get into the weeds of team racing because that would take us forever to get there, but rather some of the things that you need to consider as the event organizer, something that both Jack and I have done multiple times. Jack, let's start by describing your role at Royal Thames.
So I think the simplest way of describing my role is I'm the facilitator to get the members out sailing and racing in possibly ways that they might not normally be able to access. So we run a lot of what we call pay for play racing opportunities. And that's from really low key, fun, simple coached events to top level international team racing events.
So it's mostly small boats?
Yeah, absolutely. We have two fleets of boats that the club owns, a fleet of J70s on the Isle of Wight and a fleet of 12 Sonars just outside of West London. And those are the perfect assets to be able to give people an opportunity to come and do different types of racing without needing to go out and buy their own boat to start with.
That's great. My home club, Cumberland Yacht Club, just bought a fleet of Sonars, and I spent this last weekend helping run the Sonar North American Championship, so I know the boat pretty well. You're talking about making boats and sailing available to more members rather than just those that own big boats. What is the role of team racing in there in terms of where it falls in the pecking order overall?
Team racing's a really important discipline to the club. Within the UK, in university sailing, team racing's a huge part of that program. There are, I think, 4 championships that the British University Sailing Associations run each year, and team racing is by far the biggest. So there's a lot of sailors come through their university sailing programs. And then when they graduate, giving them an opportunity to continue team racing is one of the biggest areas that we focus on. It's a very collegiate activity. You spend a lot of time socializing on shore when you're not racing, and there's big cohorts of sailors who come through that program, not necessarily from the same university, but they've raced and known each other for a long time, and they like to be able to continue doing that. So they get short, sharp racing that gives them the thrill that they're used to, and they get to hang out with their mates. And we have a very wide range of ages that stick with team racing and come through and carry on doing that for a long time. So effectively, yeah, team racing's a big, big part of what we do. It's serious racing, but also there's a huge social aspect to it as well.
I'll admit that there's a huge social aspect to it, and I will also admit, having done it and run it for many years, it's very competitive too.
Yeah.
You have the Cumberland Cup. Describe the Cumberland Cup for me.
So when it comes to keelboat team racing, I think it's fair to say that the Americans lead the way. There's a lot of team racing events in America that we attend. We've actually just had a team come back from the Annapolis 321, which is an awesome format.
Isn't that great? Explain what that is.
The Annapolis 321, if I could emulate this event, I'd be so happy. But it's a team of 6 sailors, and they break it down into 3 different disciplines. So they do 3v3 team racing in sonars without spinnakers, sailing 2 up. Then they do 2v2 team racing with spinnakers 3 up, and that's pretty impressive because we normally race 4 up with spinnakers. And then they do match racing in J105s. And the sailors spend the weekend rotating between the different disciplines. They've got to try and remember about what the match racing rules are and getting that team coordination together. Yeah, it's a huge challenge. There's a WhatsApp chat that I'm in, and the sailors are buzzing and they're going through the photographs. And yeah, we won it last year. We came second this year, and you can guarantee they'll be back again next year.
The 321 is terrific. In fact, this coming weekend, I'm the event chair for the U.S. Team Racing Championship for the Hinman Trophy, which is a pretty substantial level of competition. And we actually moved the date so we didn't conflict with Annapolis' 321 because it's such a great event. The Cumberland Cup.
Yeah, so we do a lot of team racing in America, and we have a lot of great relationships with clubs all across the United States. And so we looked at that and thought, well, why not? I think effectively is we've got the assets, we've got the know-how, we've got the friends, and it's great to be able to put on an event with a high level of competition. And we like to think a high level of social activity as well. So it's our biggest flagship event that we run on the team racing program. And I think there's a lot of people within the club would say it's the most important event that we run, full stop. The last two editions, I think, we've done a drinks reception at the Houses of Parliament. We put on as big a show as we can. Like it means a lot to us that people want to come and play in our playground. And yeah, so we do 3 days of racing, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The prize giving has been known to go on into the wee small hours of the morning whilst everyone reminisces about the battles won and lost. And yeah, it's just great that we can get teams coming from mainly America, but we've had teams from Australia, Europe, all coming together in our playground. Yeah.
We've had teams come to the Hinman and the Royal Thames. In fact, when we had the Hinman Masters here in 2005, I remember we had a team there, which was great. Older gentlemen, shall we say.
Yeah.
Approximately what ages are the sailors that are coming back to Royal Thames to team race?
I think there's probably two distinct groups. We have a lot of young sailors coming out of university. We have an academy program that we run, which provides specific activity and events for them to compete in. It's a mix of dinghy team racing and keelboat team racing, a little bit of match racing, a little bit of sort of league racing. And then we get a lot of people who team raced in their youth. They've gone off into their lives and done their careers and so forth. And they've now got a little bit more free time and they're coming back probably late 30s, early 40s. And we tend to run a lot of one-day events at Queen Mary. It's not the easiest venue to get to by public transport, but actually getting there for a day, we'll do early starts, smashing as many races as possible. So it's a really easy way for them to get out the house on a Sunday and come and have some fast racing and then go home for Sunday dinner sort of thing.
Right. Do you do different age levels, like, masters, grandmasters, things of that sort, or is it open?
Most of what we do is open. We've started to introduce a few different formats. We are running a mixed plus event, so female helm and 50-50 crew. We did our first Masters random pairs event last year, and everyone had a riot, so we're hoping it'll be bigger and better next month.
So where are you putting Masters? 50-40?
No, I think we're 45 and 40.
So 45 for the helm, 40 for crew.
Yeah. So we're breaking it in gently. We have quite a strong cohort around about that sort of age at the moment. They're still team racing pretty actively, but it's about merging the two bands together. So giving some of our older members who may have forgotten that they used to team race the chance to come back and do it again. So we're hoping that'll build on what we had last year.
One of the things that we've learned here in the US is that as we all get older, the game has changed. The game of team racing has become more sophisticated, more boat handling driven. It's just wonderful to watch. And I mean, that's why we even now have a great grandmasters, because some people, sort of my contemporaries, said, hey, we still want to get our feet wet. One of the things that I understand about team racing is that the sails get beat to heck. I mean, it's like when you rent a car, you don't drive it the same way you would drive your own car.
No.
And particularly the jibs get beat up.
Yeah.
With all the passbacks and stuff like that, where you get your main trimmed image, or let the jib just luff. So you had your fleet of Sonar since 2023, and I guess you needed some new sails. You contacted Craig Millar, who you had worked with in the past, and he's now at UK Sailmakers South Africa.
Yeah.
What did you work out with Craig?
So there was a few little details that I was wanting to look at with the second generation of sails that we were going to go with. I have a sailmaking background. I never made sails on a sewing machine, but I worked for a sailmaker years ago. So there was a few details that I knew I wanted to include. And so I was looking for somebody that I could work with, throw some ideas backwards and forwards. I didn't want to buy an off-the-shelf product. I wanted to have something that was going to work specifically for us. So the venue that we race in, for example, is generally either very light winds, which the Sonars are amazing, or it can get pretty windy. It's a very flat area of West London, so the winds can come through pretty strong. So we wanted to have the ability to reef, which I know most people don't do in Sonars very often. So we developed a roll-up zip reef system so that we could get that reef in quickly, And that obviously involved changing the way the foot attaches to the boom and how the luff works. And there was a lot of little details that we needed to be able to discuss. And it was great to be able to just sit down at the computer with Craig, have a look at some of the details, thrash it out, talk it through, and then come up with a product that was going to work for us. And so you talk about the jibs, for example. So we've got 12 boats, but actually we've bought 18 jibs.
Doesn't surprise me. But 12 May.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got big numbers on the jibs in different colors because all of our hulls are identical. There's no distinguishing marks on the hulls, so that if we damage a boat one week, then we don't have to use it. And we're not worried about that we've got the wrong numbers on the water. So we number the sails and color the sails so that we can swap that around. And then we developed a pocket system where we could drop the numbers into the mainsail so they still matched. So there was just that ability to create the product that was going to work for us rather than just buying something off the shelf. We talked about the materials we were going to use to make sure that we're using material that wasn't going to blow out too fast.
So you were using heavier weight material.
Heavier weight material, but also very often when you buy a large number of sails, cost is a significant factor. And so therefore some of the materials would be spec cheaper. So very often your spinnakers would be a cruising nylon, but actually it doesn't have the right finish to it. So it soaks up water. When it soaks up water, it drags on the shrouds and tears. It costs you more money in the long run. So we made sure that we went with decent nylon for the spinnakers, high tenacity fibers in the Dacron sails. There was a lot of little things that we made sure that we spec the right product to give us the longevity that we need out of these things, because you're right, they take an absolute beating when the sailors jump on board.
Yeah, and they roll them up and they stick them in the bow, and it's just crazy. How about the batten lengths? Because I'm familiar with the Sonar class and its rules, but I know that some of the clubs that have bought fleets of sonars have extended battens to help the sail from flapping it, breaking down as much.
Yeah, we didn't want to alter too many things. The first event we did with these sails was the Cumberland Cup, and the majority of people coming in were going to be coming from North America. So I didn't want to scare them too much by giving them something that looked nothing like what they were used to using. So we've added the differences that we know we need. And the battens, they work. If you were designing the boat today, it's not what you would design, but we're sort of playing a balancing act on that one, I think.
In addition to the Cumberland Cup, what else do you have on your schedule of note?
So this year's the 250th anniversary of the Royal Thames Yacht Club. We have been running racing for, 250 years and a bit now. So we've scheduled a lot of events this year, and that's one of the principal reasons for buying sails for the start of the season. We had the Cumberland Cup at the start of the year. We have the Cornerstone Cup, which starts in a couple of days' time, which sees New York Yacht Club and St. Francis Yacht Club come and join us for 3 days of racing. And then we have the deciding match of the British American Cup happening at the end of October. So there's been a lot of big events going on. On top of that, we have an Open National Championship in team racing, a Women's National Championship in team racing, and then we get into the fun events at the club, what we call the hot rum and those sort of events as well. So we probably do in the region of 60 days racing a year, thereabouts in the boats. And so, yeah, we need to make sure we've got sails that are going to stand up to all that abuse.
With the dinghies, we normally sail digital ends, but the keel boats usually end up with a port box. What do you sail on?
We generally do a port box. We have this conversation quite a lot as to whether we should do the digital course or the box course. From a logistics perspective, if you've got a smaller event, the box is easier because it's the same start line and finish line. We did, for the Cumberland Cup, we did a box course with a separate start and finish line, but we put the finish line just underneath the start line so we could roll into the next race quickly. With only effectively 3 flights of boats, the big consideration is how quickly you can get them back racing again. So getting your crews turned around, get the racing started, all that kind of stuff. I think for us, the big thing is Mark IV. That's the last point in which there's a major opportunity to change the game. And if you're doing a left-hand box or the digital N, then Mark IV is the same. And that's where the team racers, the big grins appear on their face when they get that opportunity to do the jibe back or start playing. Yeah.
Yeah. The difference also is that you don't have the starboard tack roundings on Marks 1 and 2, which changed the game entirely.
Very, very much so. I think it does catch some of the dinghy team racers out in terms of their approach to Mark 1. The play is massively different. But I think it's a compromise, as with all these things. We have to think about how we can get as many races in without making things too expensive for the sailors, and people add complexity and cost.
It's a nice balance.
Yeah.
Are your events umpired?
Yes, absolutely. Most of the events, we will have a full complement of umpires. On some of the events, we will have half the number of umpires that we normally have, and we'll get the sailors to jump into the boats, partly to help out, but partly as a learning process.
That's such a good thing. In fact, for the Hinman this weekend, we're doing that too. We have certified umpires in the boats, and about 3/4 of the boats are going to have really experienced team racers in there because they know the rules. It sort of pushes them out of the boats and gets them to contribute back as an umpire. And that's important.
Yeah. I think I probably shouldn't say this, but I think my impression is that American sailors study the rules more than British sailors. And so that's not to say that they don't understand the rules, but they don't understand necessarily the full complexity of the rules. And it makes a huge difference to get that perspective of the umpire. I do a bit of coaching, and I always say it's not enough to be right. You have to be seen to be right. And just as if you're in a protest room, you have to present your case. If you're in a boat, you have to present your case to the umpire. You have to show them what it was you were trying to achieve and that you achieved it, whether that's offense or defense. And so getting time in the umpire rib, talking through the scenarios makes a huge difference to the sailors when they start to
be familiar with the playbook.
Yeah.
So we have the Hinman, as I said, at Larchmont this coming weekend. And we are clearing out the mooring field right off the front dock. So we're going to have stadium viewing. So we're going to have our seawall with the tiki bar right there, and then boom, sailing. But I mean, of all the sailors at the yacht club, probably, I don't know, 20% have ever team raced before. And we're going to have people commentating that.
Nice.
Which will be great. So that it'll become a learning experience as well as a social experience, because we'll be pouring rum and wine and beer the whole time. So what's in the future?
What's next for us? I mean, next year should be a more normal year for us. It's going to be getting more of the members out more often, making it an enjoyable thing for them to want to do. We've had so much going on with all the celebrations this year that some of our events have struggled for numbers. So I think it's just going to be about doubling down and making sure we've got people coming out and having fun.
250 years, that's quite a celebration.
It is. And rightly so. But I think we're looking at sort of widening our net. We tested a school's keelboat team racing championship end of last year, and they loved it. So we're going to build that up and get that bigger and try to get them hooked as an early an age as possible. So yeah, we're going to push that a bit more. The mixed plus and the women's team racing, again, big drivers for us, get more women helming. We have a lot of women competing, but generally as crew. Some of our best team racers are women within the club. We just need more of them.
As a dad of two daughters that sail this week, we've got a lot of women drivers, and I like to see that.
Yeah, that's one of our next focuses. And then a bit more training. I think we have some great team racers. We need more. And so we're just putting a bit more focus into coached training, self-driven training, giving the sailors the opportunity to just do a bit more learning.
What we did this year for the first time really at Larchmont is that with the sonars, you could put 4 people in there. You could put 2 or 3 good team racers in there, and you could put a total newbie in there. And what happens, you're expanding your footprint. They're getting more exposure. They may not understand it. They may, what do you mean? You didn't say ready about and we're attacking, but it just gets them more in tune with this somewhat exotic type of sailing.
Yeah, we're trying this year a completely alien concept. One of our members, who's a bit of a maths geek, came up with this idea of a cruise event. So what will actually happen is that teams of 3, effectively trimmers and bow, will enter, and it's random pairs, but they will swap helm every race. So they'll get a different helm in each race, and it's about how they can interact very quickly in a new environment. And so
the crew stays the same, and you have a driver that comes in.
We parachute different driver in each time. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. So it should be fun, it should be competitive, but it's also going to be about picking up little tips and tricks along the way. The drivers will pick up tricks from the crews will pick up tips from the drivers. And so it'll be really interesting to see how that comes together. Logistically, I'm not entirely sure how we're going to make it work, but we'll do it somehow. And yeah, that should be fun and entertaining because it'll be mixed pairs as well as mixed helms. So the scoring will be interesting.
So Jack, you told me that you would work with Craig Millar in the past, but he's now in South Africa. How did you enjoy working with him, and how was it working from the Northern Hemisphere to the Southern?
The hemisphere thing wasn't an issue. There's only 2 hours time difference. So most of what we did was through WhatsApp. We could get pictures, we could do stuff. But what I loved, I think, about the process was the honesty. He wasn't afraid to tell me that I was having crazy ideas that just weren't achievable, but he was also prepared to help realize the dream, if you like. He was very solution focused. So yeah, we could sit down. He would spend the time talking to us. I always felt like it was important to him. And so, yeah, he made the process smooth and enjoyable. He was honest about delivery timescales. He actually made the sales turn up a couple of days early, which was really useful. So, yeah, the whole process was really smooth and actually took a lot of the pressure off because you spend quite a lot of money buying that many sails and you're trying something new and something different. And you want to have the confidence that what you've envisaged is what actually turns up on the doorstep. And we got the product we wanted, but I had the confidence when it was being shipped that what I wanted was what was going to turn up. And he made that happen. So it was great to work with him.
That's clever. The tagline on our UK advertising is "Sell with confidence."
Yeah.
And allowed you to do that. Jack Fenwick, thanks for joining us on Lessons Learned and telling us a little bit about what Royal Thames Yacht Club is doing in terms of team racing and your relationship with UK Sailmakers.
Buttons, thanks for having me along. It's always useful to focus where we're heading.
That's great. Thanks for joining us for another episode of UK Sailmakers Lessons Learned. You can access the full Lessons Learned library in the how-to section of uksailmakers.com. Episodes are also available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. For UK Sailmakers, I'm Buttons Padin, and I hope these lessons learned will help you sail with confidence.